We're going to first introduce Fox. She's going to talk a little bit about herself and her experiences with role playing. Doesn't just have to be D&D, but that's our bread and butter here. And we're going to go from there and discuss some thematic ideas, things that she would like to present. What is her wish list as a DM? And then we are going to do a little bit of role playing ourselves. In terms of handing out some assignments to our prospective players, and then we're going to work with what we end up getting back as feedback.
Hello.
Hel-
It's me.
Hello. Can you all hear Fox very well? Go ahead and say a couple sentences. Give kind of a test, and let's see if they can hear you out
Alright.
there.
So is it just too quiet? Is this too quiet? Okay. Well,
12 for 10 says there you go. That's too
uh,
high.
okay.
Uh,
What? Okay.
all right.
Yes, I was quiet at first. I was shocked. So that's part for the course for me. But hi
Okay.
everyone. It's me.
Now it's a little low.
I don't know what to do. I can only do.
It's now there's a slider on my end that I'm adjusting here to making sure that
Oh,
your
I
voice
see.
gets into the yellow range of the
I
audio.
see. All right. Well, I shall talk. I shall blather on. There's the cat beside me. She's flicking her tail really dissatisfactorily.
Oh well, if there's a cat, it is an official Matty Morg stream. Whether it's not on my camera or if it's on your end.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. All right. Yes, cat is very, very integral to this process.
They're excellent. We have confirmation. We have cat butts everywhere on the stream, and so this is an official stream now.
Well, yeah. I'm the fox in a box, but most people just call me Fox, and I've been doing roleplay for a long time. I don't. It's college, so at least maybe 6 years, maybe 4 years.
6 years,
One of
and
those.
has it been just iterations of D&D, or have you dabbled in other role-playing games as well?
Well, I've dabbled in others. My first role playing game actually was called Savage World, and that was very kind of loose system. It was fun. We went through it with like an older DM who was kind of teaching us the ropes, and then I got to play second edition.
Oh,
When
so
fifth
Savage
edition was
Worlds
out.
into second edition D&D.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was very interesting. But since then, I've played a couple different games. I played D&D 5e.
Mm-hmm.
So my D&D experience is limited to second edition and fifth edition. I prefer fifth edition, to be honest. I think things have been smoothed out. I also played a Star Wars one, a homebrew JoJo's Bizarre Adventure one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was a little weird. I had like a teleportation power because I like that. um,
What was your stand's name?
God, I don't remember. It was so long ago. Yeah, but it definitely wasn't my stand.
Oh,
Um, aside from that, I'm playing in a One Piece RPG now, which is based off of 3.5 D&D,
oh, okay.
which is it's been really fun. And I've played some mage and some vampire, general World of Darkness for people who like World of Darkness. So I've played some of that too.
Well,
And
you've been playing mostly for the past 6 years.
mhm,
Uh,
I've
what kind
run
of?
three
Oh, go ahead.
games.
Go ahead.
I've run 3 games
Okay.
that I can remember. One was a very short Transformers one. That was my very first, and it was using a homebrew system that I really wanted to try. in retrospect, it might not have been the best idea to go with a homebrew system for your first game. But, whatever. I like the subject matter. So that went on for a little bit, and then I got I was nervous about that.
Okay.
All right. And it kind of fell apart because I didn't feel like the players were very engaged. And I tried another D&D one, and that one went better, but it was in person at college, and everyone's schedules were all over the place because we had torture. The torture known as college to go through. So
Oh.
that including myself, I was an engineering major, so I died regularly.
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, hey, it's good to hear you pursued quite the nerdy degree.
Oh yes.
And in its own way, I hope that it has been useful for you in role playing. I mean, obviously in real life applications, but
Yeah.
but it's been useful elsewhere. If you can take a look at how things are put together or torn apart on a structural level, a chemical level, a biological level, whichever kind of engineering you went to.
I went in for computer science actually.
Oh, all right. Then knowing that is going to help. Not because I'm an expert programmer by any means, or I am into computer engineering. But maybe we can find mnemonic devices that, when we're going over some of the concepts on running a game or finding options, we can try and flavor it in a way that is easy for your if you've trained your mind, and if not, then we can flavor it however you want. But if we treat it almost like a decision tree or a way of programming, if then sort of cause and effect reactions.
Yes, logical stuff.
Logical stuff. Look, because DM can stand for Dungeon Master, but the biggest part of the initials, really, that DM stands for is Decision Maker.
That is not a thing I've heard before, but it sounds about accurate.
Yes, you are the decision maker. You are the computer, and you are gonna have to make decisions, even hard decisions, or you're gonna have to examine thresholds of, is this relevant enough to spend time on, or is the show gonna go on, or you encountered an error, and are your eyeballs just gonna roll back into a blue screen of death? Or can you somehow find a really cool glitch and monetize it on YouTube and then live off the rest of it?
Fox.exe has stopped working. Please try again later. You try restarting your computer.
English Rose brought up a very good point here. I thought the computer was for Paranoia. I don't know if you've heard of the Paranoia RPG, but that is a system that might be up your alley as well.
Yeah.
All right, so you've talked a little bit about your pedigree coming into here as a professional fox and a role player of 6 years.
Yes, indeed.
You want to step up and learn techniques, and so therefore you have a story you want to tell. You have the spark in you. We'll use Transformers. You said you like Transformers. You have the spark, Fox.
Yes, I have the touch. I have the power.
You have the power.
Yes.
And you know what?
I am in the eye of the storm.
And sometimes you just gotta dare to be stupid.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Lessons. Life lessons with Matty Morgs here.
Hey, you know what? We call them experience points for a reason. It's because you're gaining experience in life. And
Yes.
and that is really, I've said this a lot on the channel. Telling a story.
Yeah, I used to be called Foxsmith Prime, actually.
Oh!
In the past.
Ivlon is digging deep and is now cyberpunking and finding your old aliases.
Yeah.
We as human beings are and you know what? If you're not one, you're doing a hell of a job and you fooled me. So just keep playing along. We as human beings have the unique gift of being able to tell a story. And that's what has helped us to, adapt, survive, create language and culture, to create fiction and describe nonfiction, to blend the two together to create music and art, and just
Yes, go on, human. I mean, fellow human.
yes, fellow human. We are here to discuss the human things.
Yes, quite. Such as the story that you are referencing.
And every good story is going to need some inputs. And so what I want to do before we go through the commands, the boundaries, and pardon me if I'm absolutely flubbing programming language, you could just laugh at me here.
It's interesting to hear.
But before we put in boundaries for our program, our AI or whatever, I want to know what you as the DM, the developer,
The box master, yes.
yes, what kind of a story would you like to tell? What's a genre? What is something that would really get you excited to show up once a week as consistently as possible or more, and to sit down and really give it your all?
Let me get my wish list up here. I made a wish. I'm prepared. This is part of the engineering thing. Gotta be prepared. Mostly anyway. Yeah. Sometimes you just kind of roll with the punches. If my engineering degree has taught me one thing, it's how to wing it.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, don't worry. It works. It ships. It runs. I think one of the things we used to say to each other was, if it compiles, which means it builds up and the program builds up, then you can ship it. You don't have to run it. You don't have to make sure there are any bugs remaining. You just if it compiles, it's good enough.
And if there is, you still release it at full price, and you just charge people downloadable content patches to make a workable game after they pay full retail price for it.
Yeah, that's clearly how you're supposed to do it. If the AAA game companies have taught me anything.
Did you find your list? Are you hankering for a Western, or you know what? The boys over at D&D Time just prior to this, were talking about some nautical things. Ship sailing, island hopping.
I do like island hopping and nautical things. That's exciting to me. I like the idea of just going out on an adventure. When I was a kid, I used to me and my cousin would create little craft things that we would sell to our parents for real money, so we could build a flying machine, so we could go on an adventure together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So adventure's always been a pretty big part of my life, and I've always liked the idea of just going off, like, on a ship, or, like, in some kind of, ship, essentially. And just going, exploring the unknown, and that sort of captures a nautical adventure sort of captures that spirit,
All right. So a nautical adventure, things like exploring the unknown. In fact, going into what you experienced. You say when you were a kid, but come on, we're all still kids at heart.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I was like single digits back then. So.
Okay, a wee babby fox.
Yes, I was a wee fox, very small.
Is this something then? It does have a personal connection, and you know what? The story you tell can very well be a part of you. Would you see that an adventure, if you had it your way, and I mean, we're still talking, a bird's eye view of things, but if you had it your way, would it be something like, you start out with the scrappy first ship that you pull together with all the sailors' allowances, and as you do jobs and you find treasure, that you end up building this flying machine, ultimately you have the most freedom or something like that? Or is there
Yeah,
something else that you would like to explore with this?
oh, yeah, that's a cool idea, of course, but I just like, you know, I've always been a fan of like the evolution of like investment in something, developing something. When I was always a fan of those kind of city building games, you know what I mean? Where you
Okay.
sort of poured resources into your city, where you spent time making things better, or getting a bigger ship, or getting better equipment, that sort of thing, building up a following, that sort of that sort of gist. Good. Okay.
Okay. So themes of exploring the unknown, investment in development, city building,
Yeah.
resource management. You start off scrappy and then earn your way to the best ship ever.
Yes, of course. But if we're gonna have exploring, we have to have something, things worth exploring, wondrous things, but you also have to have horrible, dark, evil things that you can just stumble into. I personally enjoy throwing a bit of eldritch horror,
Oh.
just a little bit in. Hi, Mac. Derek. Macabre Derek. Shut up, Hive.
Evelyn says, "Oh yeah, it's not a Fox game without the evil." Um, and you know what? As Pete, Jeremy, and Farfel were talking about on the program, every little wave can contain a mystery or a horror. What lurks beneath the waves.
Indeed.
And honestly, the wave isn't that thin. Like you have the molecular tension on the surface, but right below that, in cloudy waters, what a shark attack can occur in like 2 feet of water.
Yeah.
You know,
Sea serpent attack, or a
yeah,
kraken attack, or whatever lies below. In fact, you could even go below the surface of the water and explore things down there. That would be kind of wondrous and awesome.
and absolutely terrifying with the things that you see down there too.
Yeah, of course.
With what's
The sea holds many beautiful things, but also many terrifying things. Have you ever seen a goblet shark?
oh yeah, they like rocket their jaws forward and then kind of bring it back too. So
Yeah,
you want elements of beauty, uh,
yeah.
uh,
Beauty and terror, because
and
that's
terror.
what the ocean is.
All right.
I'm actually a scuba diver on the side sometimes, so
Oh,
it's
cool.
kind of a personal connection there too.
Oh, have you seen things?
I have seen a shark. It swam around me a bit.
Oh.
I was like, "Hi, what up?" It's a little thing. I've seen a couple different sharks actually, but uh, I've seen a bunch of like moray rays, eagle rays. I've seen
Okay.
moray eels. I've seen Goliath grouper, and if you don't know what those are, they're basically fish the size of a cow.
Oh yeah. They're uh yeah, I think I've seen them before. They're not the sunfish, but yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're literally the size of a cow.
Grown up in Florida. In fact, I think I even have seen one floating around in the water, and you're like, "Ooh, I don't want to go in there with that." That's I mean,
They
grouper's
eat
good eating,
sharks.
but this grouper will think you're good eating.
Yeah, they eat sharks. I
um,
saw a video of a Goliath grouper coming, like a fisherman had a shark on the line, and a Goliath grouper just came out of nowhere from the deep and swallowed it and disappeared.
oh, geez. Well, you know what? Using your experience here, would you be comfortable then not only having a cruising on the surface adventure, but you would want to take your players down beneath the waves too,
Oh yeah,
correct?
oh yeah, for sure.
Part of the adventure will take place beneath the waves.
No, I was reading through the DMG recently,
Hmm.
and I was reading up about the God, what do you call them? The planes, but
Hmm.
not just the material plane, but the two other planes, and then the elemental planes. What are the elemental planes called? The inner planes or the outer planes?
Well, it depends on which plane, because there's outer planes and inner planes, and there's all sorts of them here.
The elemental planes, like the plane of fire, and air, and water, and earth.
Yep.
It's earth, right? Okay, those are inner planes. Thanks, Nicarak. Okay. That's an interesting username. Okay. I get tongue tied. But yeah, I like the idea of all of those inner planes and the Feywild and Shadowfell all converging into this one world. So there's like islands that are part of the Shadowfell that you can just travel to on the material plane. Or there's islands or sections of the underwater that are part of the Feywild, and you can travel to them via your ship. Like,
So,
they're all very close.
Plane hopping, but you don't have to be a mighty wizard because you can sail the ship
Right.
into this gateway, or this representation of a plane on an island.
Right. You can,
Okay.
say, cruise through a sea of fire or things like that.
And what kind of an environment would you see this taking place in? Now, obviously, if the islands are representations of these places, these otherworldly places, and perhaps there's even more than a handful of, I guess, what we would consider to be normal or material plane islands. Do you have a concept in mind of, are we talking tropical,
Tai Chi.
Oh, hey,
Well-
Ginger Babe, thank you very much for the re-up on there.
Oh,
Are we talking like tropical island hopping, or do you kind of have a romantic notion in mind for, for like the Aleutian Islands, or we're going up to like Viking, northern Arctic climate island hopping, or are we
I
talking?
was thinking like all sorts of island hopping. Like, you never know what you're gonna get from island to island. Like, it could be tropical one day, and then you start heading over and it gets hot and steamy, and then suddenly you're in the plane of fire, and you have these volcanic islands, or you're cruising along on the ship and you see this island that's had all its color bleached out, and there's dead trees and everything's twisted up and wrong. Like, I imagine a variety of feels to the environment. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, and so the setting, the setting is going to be very mutable. And as the DM, this sounds like this would be a tool to allow you to explore the interaction of the planes, or to make sure that things are, nothing's the same. There may never be a boring day at sea.
Right.
Now, are you going to have a kind of a home base? Is there a continent or some solid land, something that provides any sort of stability? Or in your mind, is the entirety of this place really just almost like Waterworld, where people just have built stuff out of scrap, and really everyone is afloat? There's not really a continent. There's not really land. Everyone is just at sea? Or what is your vision for this? Is there a home base?
I was thinking that there probably wouldn't be much of one. Not a continent per se, because the point of the campaign would be to explore the nautical side and not the land-based side.
Okay.
So, but there might be like larger islands that could be considered small continents. So, there could be like a New Zealand somewhere where you have several cities and it takes days to traverse it or something. There could obviously be huge islands, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything. I didn't have a huge continent in mind unless it was to like eat some part of the world off.
Okay. And obviously, look, over the course of a campaign, you're the storyteller. You can change your mind, and especially if your players don't know this, if you didn't sit down and put this sheet in front of them,
Yeah.
They may never know that you at one time planned to have a home base New Zealand, like larger island. Because you know what? They're having fun just going a smaller island hopping, and so are you. And you know what? If you don't tell them it exists, it doesn't exist. And
True.
so that's why thinking on paper like this, put all of your ideas out there, and then start simple.
Yeah.
Start simply, and then as you tell the story, more of your world is going to be on display. More of your world is going to just unfold, and session by session, really even interaction by interaction, you are constantly getting information. You're getting feedback from your players about the things that they like or don't like in an in-character setting. And as a DM, don't be afraid to sit down and say, here's my idea, guys. Look, as friends, as human friends, let's
Yes,
communicate. If you feel like maybe you messed something up, or you told everyone, look, I'm gonna need your cooperation. There's something I want to try this coming session. Roll with me, please. And maybe they're willing to suspend some disbelief. We may often think that playing a game like Dungeons and Dragons, you have to present some austere, immutable story. And that's not the case. A lot of this is reacting on the fly. It is, we'll go back to compiling that you just said. You think you write solid code, and you spend a lot of time and effort into it, and when it throws an error back at you, you have to be there, and you got to fix it.
Yeah, you do. You really do. And McGruber and Gingerbait, I have seen Life by actually. It was a good flick. I don't remember if I finished it. Probably finished it. But yeah, I really like it. Good movie.
And
good
you know what?
inspiration.
Oh yeah, inspiration from film, comics, novels, and the like. You can really take away a lot, and never be afraid. It sounds like because you've played in fan games, so this is comfortable to you. But don't be afraid to borrow an idea. Make it your own. But there's nothing new under the sun, Fox. And so please never feel pressured that you have to somehow be responsible for a 100% original tale.
Yeah, I mean, tropes work for a reason.
They do. They very much do. And yet there's a trope broadly, but this is Fox presents your take on this.
Yep.
And so to everyone in this moment, especially if everyone's sitting at a table and it's heads up, but if you can't do that, then through Roll20 or a virtual tabletop, especially if you have cameras and mics. That way you get facial recognition. When you have such an intimate moment, and I say that in terms of, not romance, but in closeness, right? We're all together. We're spending time, we're close, we're sharing our thoughts and our feelings. And so when you have an intimate bond like this over the course of weeks and months and even years, if you decide to do this, it can be, it is going to turn everything you do into your story. And that's the plural your. I mean, it's Fox Presents, but it's our tale. This is our take on whatever. And, so I saw above in chat, I think it was Ivlon saying, oh, so we're going to be playing, episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where they went through the liquid core of Naboo. And you know what? Maybe you end up doing that. And yet this is your Naboo, and it may be called something else. It's whatever. And you take the idea, and they have their little bongos or whatever little submarine was that they took through, and then you turn a giant grouper into the fish that chased them. And so you're drawing on real life, you're drawing on Star Wars, but you know what? None of that matters, because in the moment, right here and right now, is if I'm your player, Fox, this is our story, and this is my giant grouper chasing me, and this is my planet that we're being chased through, into the depths, kind of a thing, and so I'm using you as the discussion focus, but I hope for anyone else who's out there watching that, who has maybe toyed with the idea of being a DM, don't think that you can't present ideas or inspirations you've encountered in your life, because you can, and that's the whole basis for storytelling. We take the things around us that we have word for, and we make up words for those that we don't, and we throw it out there. Now, Fox, is there anything else that you would like to bring up for a campaign theme or a setting in some way before we do some homework?
Well, we're gonna have to throw some magical elements in there. Probably. Geez, I don't know. We're probably gonna have to have like different islands of isolated cultures. You could do like extremists, do cults. You could do a whole lot of things with islands because everything's cranked up to 11 on islands.
Yeah. Oh, there's like super specialized biomes. Exactly.
Right.
Then generalize this. The magic level in your world is high, medium. Everything but necromancy exists because maybe that's a rule in your world.
I'm not sure, honestly. When I look into my heart of hearts, I'm like, I do like me a rip roaring sea adventure, but I don't know how magic fits in. If that makes sense.
So in terms of, is it as if people can create their own food and water, it doesn't seem as survivally, or it doesn't seem like, hey, we're all in this as a hardy crew that has to, look ahead and stock up supplies, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it might be middle magic a bit.
Okay, middle magic.
Middle to low magic. I wouldn't say high magic because that means there's magic items everywhere, and those are probably like from ancient ruins of the lost age or something. So we're probably in the middle to lower magic range.
Okay.
Like there was probably a great fall in the past or something. In world history, like that's cool.
So low middle magic, even uncommon magic items are going to be very rare, and you are open to curating spell lists. For example, saying Goodberry. Like, Goodberry's not available because it feeds a person for a day and cures them of a hit point for one little berry, or and you want a survival aspect, so you're taking out survival spells, or
I'm open to curating.
Okay.
If it increases the feel of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's important to maintain that feel, that general. I'm gonna say feel again, but it's like a tone. It's like an overall tone.
And this is good to flesh out for yourself, because this is what we're going to be measuring the results of our players bringing back their characters to us, and to see how we can get the two to merge.
Right.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to put in for your adventure notes?
Hit the multiplanar stuff, hit the naval stuff, we hit mutable biomes, we hit hostility. I don't think so.
Okay. Then
that's my wish list.
Then you have a basic wish list, and it can always expand or even contract later. Now I'm going to step up and give some parameters.
Right.
If you're saying, well, I want to get started here, I don't want things to go too crazy. I've heard of like ultra combo builds and all this other stuff, and so you tell your players, all right, so here's the theme. You don't have to tell them everything that they see on the screen, because some of that is going to be some of it's going to be secret for you.
Yeah, it's going to be a surprise.
And it's much better to show and not tell. And if you tell people, all right, I'm going to run a horror game, and you may very well run a horror game, But if you expect
That would be
that,
just my luck.
yeah,
Accidentally running a horror game. Like,
it's
whoops.
well,
I didn't mean for it to go this way.
well, it's a measure against which you could be judged in some sense, or it's pre-blown people's minds. If they sit down and they're not sure what to expect, it creates tension, and it also retains attention. And
Right.
overall, they'll look back, after playing with you for a while and say, you know what, this has been a very, I've been picking up horror elements. I'm kind of scared to put my toes in the water. She really has us. She has us shook. And that is when you know that you are presenting what you'd like to present. So let's presume you want to keep things simple, and so you gather up 4 people,
Right.
and you say, all right, here's the rules. We're gonna go player's handbook, or DMG for the class for Oathbreaker and Death Domain. So core rule books.
All right.
Feats are okay.
Yep.
Multi-classing is okay.
Indeed.
I want you to start with the standard array of scores. That way everyone has kind of like even footing, and you don't have to worry about like super powerful builds or anything. And you can be evil if you wish, but there's no PKing. There's no PvP unless it's, like 2 sailors wanting to do a boxing match for money or something on the deck.
Don't make me Bartholomew, people.
Well, yeah, like Bartholomew from D&D time.
Yeah.
He just instantly manifests and says nay nay.
No. That's not what we do.
And so we have these core requests of your players. That way it keeps it simple, and they may say, well, but I really wanted this, and you say, well, hang on, we'll get there. I want to start simple, and maybe you can unlock, maybe you find other races, and you can play that character later, or you could turn into one, or something along those lines. But let's focus first, and tell our tale with a humble beginning, and we'll go and grow from there. All right, so feats, multi-class, evil's okay for not a PK or standard array. Oh, half +1 hit point progression, and races, classes, backgrounds only from PHB and DMG. And you are allowing them to they can keep their starting gear from their background and their class, and they can spend their initial pocket change on things that they'd like. But if they want something more, especially because if you told them, all right, so magic items aren't very common, so consider that, if I gave you a bunch of money, you can't just go and get a +1 sword or whatever. So
right.
Buy what you will, and we're going to start at level 6, because to sail in these dangerous seas, you need to be seasoned. You got to have a little bit of experience under your belt.
A little bit.
And do you have to start at level 6? No, you don't have to. It's a bit of an arbitrary number, but for purposes of, I guess, prompting us to examine characters, I didn't want to start just at level 1, and I hope that's okay by you, Fox.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
It's interesting around that level. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, you've had your first ASI, you've had your first proficiency bump, and you've probably gotten to maybe the second thing in your subclass, or a good handful of your class abilities unlocked.
Yeah, a healthy chunk. Not the cool stuff, but a healthy chunk.
All right, so I'm going to move your adventure notes off to the side, and
right.
you send off you send the players off, and you say, all right, so we're going to meet back here, and it's not a session 0, but we're getting there, and I want you all to come back and present to me your characters, and then we can discuss them. We can talk about, oh, I like this or not, and now what we can do is start pulling information from their sheets, because your players are going to do so much legwork for you, right? You provided them the prompt, and if you like their character, they're going to enrich your world in so many different ways, and it takes so much pressure off of you.
Yeah, I know the feeling actually.
All right, so the first person to come back is some rando guy named Pete, and
Oh gosh, that random guy named Pete.
and Rando Pete here submits to you a character sheet for someone that he has named Delabean One Shoe Dabble Stabble.
Tells. Yes, present your sacrifice to the foxy gods.
Hey, you gotta
It
save
will
that
be
for.
judged.
That's when the doors close and the lights dim, except for that one really good like spotlight on you.
Yes, yes, of course. There has to be that one really good spotlight on me. I don't know, backlit by flames or something or lava. That's good.
All right, so the speaking of the spotlight, I'm gonna put this on you. I have
Yep.
I have Rando Pete's character sheet on stream, but what I would like you to do here is go over it. I'm not going to take any notes at this stage. Just go over it and point out things that are, oh, that's cool, or wait, how does that work? Or um, should I talk to him about this? Maybe this isn't the right thing.
So you just want my verbal bar thing as I look over things and my opinions on things as I see them.
Yeah, just look over the sheet and give us what is your first impression. Just 5-10 minutes. Just go through it and what's standing out as like super awesome de-dawsome, or what is just ugh.
Alrighty. Well, let's see. He has an awesome name. That name. Best name. He's an oath of ancient paladin, which means they do protecting and kindling light thing. Means they're sort of nurturing protectors, if you will.
Hmm.
He's a gnome. Of course, he likes gnomes. Outlander, lovely.
Now, one thing to keep in mind, you mentioned that Oath of the Ancients. They have powers against fiends and fae.
They do. They do indeed.
And in what could that mean for your world? If there's people like this that exist,
It probably means there's gonna be fiends and fae involved, honestly. It's definitely gonna mean there's fiends and fae for him to combat. Honestly, well, what else? He's pretty. Is he lawful neutral? Personality traits. He doesn't care about manners or money. That's interesting. He's pretty resilient. Cares more about nature than civilization. Doesn't like people hurting nature. And he's about survival of the fittest. Interesting.
mm-hmm.
I wonder how that's gonna work in a party.
That is an excellent point. As a DM, he chose this as well. I mean, he could have rolled it, but ultimately he's submitting this to you because this is a character that he could play.
Right.
What could this mean if?
It could mean he leaves someone behind to die, or doesn't help them when they need help. Which it's not PKing if you're not the one behind the sword. That's the lesson I learned while playing D&D time. I just didn't have to tell that person who was being rude to my character about the hole that was about to collapse under their feet. I'm just gonna get out of the way.
Now, what is something? There's something you were reading over in this background info that could have an impact on your world, or is something you're gonna have to sit down with Pete and discuss, because it is either literally not existent, or it exists in a different way, or something along those lines. What's standing out there?
Are you referring to the orc horde?
Ah, yes, running 25 miles about with an orc horde.
Yes, they're probably should be your chords then. Or talk to Pete about if there are chords. I'm not against there being chords or having like gnomes and orcs be mortal enemies, although that is an interesting visual in my brain.
And you know what? This is the Fox's take on these racial interactions. Maybe gnomes and orcs are bitter enemies, or if this is a water world, what if he
Yeah, man.
swam 25 miles without stopping to warn of
Orc pirate invasion?
it doesn't even have to be orcs. It could just be X to warn about X.
That's true. It's something I can discuss with Pete,
Mm-hmm.
potentially. His Wanderer, which is good for sailing, honestly. That Outlander background is actually really helpful for sailing and navigating.
Yep,
And
it
good for
can be.
survival.
This is someone who's definitely going to be sent out on away missions to reprovision food and drink, huh?
Yeah, probably. Find some on him. Just getting a general feel of what he's all about. Member of an order of forest gnome knights and paladins that roam the forest of their homeland, protecting it from discovery and the dangerous beasts that roam there, otherwise known as the Order of Autumn. That's fantastic. It could be on a wild island that's in the fall season, the winter season, or whatever. Because I've been playing one of my games in the Feywild, and we've
Mm-hmm.
been going through the different seasons, and it's been pretty fun.
Ah.
So there's that. His instrument is whistling. That's fine.
Now, this is a decision for you.
Right?
Would you count that as an instrument in some way, or would that be something else?
It depended on how he wanted to flavor it, I guess.
Okay.
But whistling could be an instrument. Generally an annoying instrument, but it could be an instrument. Especially over voice chat. Have you ever heard someone whistle over voice chat? That's
Oh, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does wonders for the audio peaking.
yeah, ears bleeding. Let's see. Nature surrounds, turn faceless. Shapeshifter. You can reveal shapeshifters. That's a neat trick. A couple shapeshifters thrown in. That sounds fun. I always do like shapeshifters.
Okay. So he's helping you get some ideas for the world and its population.
Nictorac, I'm not sure how large it would be. I imagine I'd probably develop islands based on the players and then go from kind of there. See where we would go from there. Let's see. Notes of contention. Notes of contention. Oh, okay. Unshoe. Nickname. Okay. So he would leave it up to me why he's called One Shoe. Interesting. Pick whistling. He's justifying whistling here.
Ah.
That sounds reasonable. He's mentioning whistling is birdsong, which is that's fine to me. Some people consider that music, and I think it works fine, especially for his origin.
Okay.
I'm easygoing again. Let's see. Backstory. Most of his life guarding his idyllic homeland in the forest. His life changed when a wounded dragon crashed into his forest. Oh boy! That sounds interesting. There shouldn't have been dragons of any kind in this part of the world. I'd have to agree to that. They're probably pretty rare. even though it is called Dungeons and Dragons. Not a lot of
That's
dragons
true.
in
Dragons
Dungeons
can
and
be
Dragons.
very rare or non-existent.
Yeah, very strange. Set out on a path of adventure to find whether Homeland has been why the dragon fell and was injured, and whether or not the incident was isolated. Well, that's a story thread right there. That's a whole mystery. It's easy to come up with stuff for.
And and he's given you ideas now.
That's like a whole plot line. That's a whole arc.
This is very much an arc, and you can choose to accept it, piecemeal or altogether. If you don't want dragons in this world, Fox, just because a player submits a backstory that includes one, doesn't mean you have to accept it. And you could change it to something else instead. But if you like this and you say, you know what? Yeah, I could work with this.
Yeah, I could work with this.
And in fact, you could enhance it and say, yeah. So a portal ripped open above your island home, and a dragon fell out of it.
Yeah, or something. I could definitely enhance it in ways the player wouldn't know either.
Yeah, and now suddenly we're playing Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Mage, the RPG.
What?
And
all right, sit down.
Hey, look, just dragons coming out of fantasy lands crashing around.
I know. It's, sometimes they fall into your house, and it's upsetting.
Yeah, that's...
Alright. Let's take
All you want to do is just live your soul-crushing middle management life.
I know, right? Jeez, God, that struck a little too close to home. Jeez. Alright, so let's scoot on down to spells real quick, because I always like to see what the spells say about the character.
Uh-huh.
He has Ceremony, which is an interesting pick. A lot of support. Moonbeam, also about those shapeshifters, Misty Step, Mind Steed. So he's gonna have a steed, miraculous steed that he's gonna have a bond with, and it's gonna be me playing that steed, and I'll be like, "Nay, bitch," or something like that. Well, technically it's a gnome, so it might be like a frog or something, a deer. So he's very supported, not a lot of damage, although he's a paladin, so he's got smites raised. Yeah, interesting.
Are you finding anything here?
In the spells section, I just think it's an interesting choice. It tells me a little more about the character itself.
The spells will certainly do so. Can I point something out to you?
Sure.
I have highlighted a section of level 1 paladin spells.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me why did I do this?
To put me on the spot.
Yeah. One of these things is not like the other.
I mean, he's got oath spells.
He does.
If that's what you're implying. Ceremony, which is from Xanathar's.
Ah, what was that? Say it a little louder.
Ceremony is from Xanathar's.
Did Pete try and pull a sneaky on you?
Perhaps.
Did you allow Xanathar's spells in your build me a character request?
Did you?
I read you the rules. I mean, they're your rules, but we're role playing.
Yes. Oh, right. I'm gonna have to have a talk with Pete about that. I didn't say that was allowed.
That's true. Now, ceremony might not be, a broken spell, and maybe it works. Look, people, you need a reason to celebrate on a ship, but still, old sneaky Pete here tried to put something on his spell list that fell outside of the request.
Yes, the requirements, my strict requirements that I am meant to code to.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
And
Sorry, a little bit of jargon there.
oh, that's fine. There's a couple
Yes.
other little things too, and I don't say this because I want to develop suspicion. There should not be suspicion or distrust between player and DM, because you know what, mistakes happen. He could have been thinking about another
No,
paladin.
he's
You know,
sly. He was out to get me. He was out to min-max with this ceremony spell. I just know it. It's broken.
hey, that would be awesome. I'd love to see someone like just build an entire character around ceremony and just milk it for all it's worth.
That would be funny. I'd pay to see that.
There's a couple little things too, and this could even show that maybe he was distracted, or this could show a danger as well. If we zoom in, here we'll do CSI enhance.
Quickly enhance the image, Maddie.
Now gnome cunning is there for all gnomes. But you see that for a race he has listed rock gnome. And he's playing a forest gnome.
Forest gnome. Yes, that is quite incorrect. Perhaps a spelling mistake.
It could have just been a simple mistake. And something else too that's subtle. Technically, speech of beast and leaf is for furbolgs, and not for forest gnomes. The abilities are similar, but they do kind of the same thing but different. Now, this is, as far as I've seen, this is the forest gnome version. But this could get you thinking, well, is he looking through other sources? Is he putting speech of beast and leaf? Because he had Volo's guide on the mind.
He apparently did. He had Xanathar's on the mind for sure.
He definitely did. He just put that right out there on his spell sheet. I figured Shymek, but that's
yeah. You're a monster, Pete.
Now, for things like this too, when you go to lay on hands, the pool of 30, that's up to you. If you want to scrutinize every line on a character sheet, that's going to be your call as a DM.
I can't. I can't be bothered. I have too much work to do as the DM. It's on the players to keep track of their stuff. Of course, this means that there's a level of trust implicit, and if that trust goes away for some reason,
yep,
there will be consequences.
Like breaking the game with the ceremony spell.
I know, Pete. Really?
Now we'll move on here because I don't want to spend too much time. We're kind of doing like first looks. One other thing that I would recommend that you look at, if you have this paladin, right? He comes from this order of knights and whatnot. You swear an oath, and it could be to a god or goddess. It could be to a notion, but a paladin's oath is something that you and the player should talk about and discuss the tenets of behavior.
It's the same with like cleric and what the do's and don'ts of their god, kind of. And the kind of the same thing for warlocks. There's a lot of there's built-in flavor to the classes that you have to talk about just innately. Some of these classes, not all of them, but some of them. I mean, fighter's pretty basic, but you can talk about like if you're an Eldritch Knight, you can throw flavor into that. If you're a battle master, maybe you're a war veteran or something, you can throw flavor into this, but it's just something to talk about.
And one last thing to bring up, I imagine gnomish, if gnomes can exist, so too can their language. This probably won't ruffle too many feathers considering the nature of your island hopping, but something to pause, if only for a moment. Would his character be able to know the primordial language? This is the elemental language.
It's conceivable if it's a Feywild island.
You're going to have to talk to him about that. Now, the Outlander background grants him an extra language.
Right.
But if dragons don't exist and he took Draconic, would you allow that?
No. I wouldn't let them take a useless language. I'd like to make sure that the players have a fair shake on what they get.
Very good. All right, so you tell old Sneaky Pete that he's gonna have to see you after class. But you know what? Pretty solid character. It's giving you some ideas. It's making your brain go to town, and it's helping you in some way to develop your own adventure notes. And we're gonna save that for another part. But let's go to now. Person number 2 steps in, and we have Coffee Cat. And Coffee Cat wanted to play with you, and was hopefully following your directions, and is submitting this character, Mark Alarian, who, by the way, in the file name up here, I actually like this name better, of Marcelarian. If you just kind of jam it together, Marcelarian. That sounds like a really cool half-elf name. But anyway, so here we have Mark. And go ahead and scan it over and just talk it out.
All right.
What do you see?
Urchin background comes from big city, probably where there's poverty, and probably a class distinction. What do you call it? Class gap, something.
Different socioeconomic circumstances.
Yeah, and it's probably pretty harsh. Where he's from. Valor Bard, half elf. M half elf? What's M half elf mean?
Male half elf.
Oh, right. I wasn't sure if it was one of the variants, which wouldn't be allowed.
Ooh.
Let's see what we got. Man, the sheet's different. I'm not used to it. There's common, elvish, and question mark. Probably to discuss with me what that other language would be, and what's relevant, and what he would know.
Excellent.
Those tools. Guys, kid, thieves, tools. That's for backgrounds. Blue wire. Fae ancestry. More stuff with the Fae. Versatility, perception, survival. Good to have. Counter term. What's counter term?
That is trying to break people out of being enchanted because you're discordant. You are, it's support for friends.
Is that a Valor Bard thingy?
That's Bard per class.
Oh, geez, okay.
So
I haven't played Bards long enough, I guess.
This could be something in a sailing campaign. It was brought up on the D&D time stream. A siren pops up out of the water and starts singing her song and enchanting people to fall over the edge. And this could be Mark's opportunity
You're
to...
You're going to have a bard off. It's time for a bard off. Do. Sorry, I just had a little fun with that.
How dare you have fun?
I know. Restrained. Let's inventory. There's a token to remember the past. Probably have to discuss what that is because it's not listed.
That's going to be relevant to the character, isn't it?
Yeah. And their pet, also relevant.
Mm-hmm.
They have a shipmaster feat, is it? Yeah, I think so. Which is interesting choice of feat, I suppose.
Yeah,
He's a bit of a short boy. Yep. He's a bit of a short boy. Light, very light. Sleeps with back to the wall or tree. So this is someone who's had stuff taken away from them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They want to find a better life. And they escape their life of poverty by robbing an important person, and they're wanted for it. Aw, that sounds like fun! That sounds like an art to me! You in trouble. That's gonna come up.
Alright, you hear that, Coffee Cat? This is gonna come up in over the course of the adventure somewhere.
Oh yeah. There will likely be a whole thing about it. And it might chase you throughout the whole thing. Who knows? It could escalate. If you're outnumbered, you'll run away from the fight. Interesting flaw. It's the second of the deserter flaws, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Pete's paladin was like, "Yeah, if you're not strong enough, I'll leave you." And
Yeah.
this one's like, "If I'm outnumbered, I'm gonna ditch."
Could that provide a bond between the characters in some way?
Yeah, it looks like they're a more cautious sort, which isn't bad.
Okay.
Uh, City secrets, which is good. I wouldn't limit it to their starting city. I would just limit it to big cities like the one where they're from,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a sort of rhythm to it.
The existence of this urchin seems to be manifesting this New Zealand island concept, kind of a normal, a place of normalcy. It could be a
Yeah,
big city, small city,
there
but
there are probably gonna be a couple like different city islands that are just a city, or islands with several cities. It could be like that, but the urchin type would do well in navigating those sorts of islands. The paladin type would be good at doing the more Feywildy types of islands, that sort of thing. Shield master, you bought people with a shield, and that's cool. Hard spell. Spells are fun. All right, let's see what you got. Message, good for secret messages. Prestidigitation and True Strike. True Strike's not one I see a lot.
mm-hmm. That's true. Strike.
Uh, then there's Bane, and languages, Featherfall, healing word. So a bit of a healer, but also a bit of a debuffer. Heat metal and lesser restoration. So we got offense and a bit of utility kind of going in here. Spell magic's great for high magic enemies that cast a lot of enchantments. There may have to put like if not magical things, then enchanted things around the place. That's more relevant. Sending is also one of those secret message type things,
Mm-hmm.
which fits in well with the kind of the urchin feel. Heat metal seems like an interesting spell. Could provide metal. The ship is mostly made out of wood. Maybe there's like an iron island or something where there's
There could be. Also, think of this: what's holding the wood together?
nails and such.
Oh.
Yes, indeed. You could start fires that way, I suppose. If wood was dry.
Is anything else standing out at you, or is providing you inspiration or pause for thought?
Not yet. Do you see anything else?
I do.
Well, do you want to point it out?
I suppose. This isn't anything that's necessarily bad. But what I do see here as a character, we have a survivalist. We have someone who's really been through something. Look at this. He sleeps with his back to a wall or tree. He has trust issues, right? He hides scraps of food and trinkets in his pockets.
Yeah.
We have, he wants to be better. And take a look at his spells. You're absolutely correct in looking at his spell list. Yeah, he can cure others. However, a lot of this can be used for his own survival.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong necessarily if Coffee comes back to you with this character, and we have a very reclusive, kind of an introverted sailor. He probably does sleep every night, despite being aboard this ship with the crew for 5 years.
Yep.
Maybe he was just like hurt, emotionally hurt as a kid, or just something keeps lingering. It could even be a bad dream, that keeps him so cautious. Maybe he's very superstitious. And
something to discuss with Coffee, something to throw in the backstory.
mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, is there a backstory? Not a backstory.
there
I'm talking-
is not a provided backstory. At least that's
Aside
written
from-
here.
Aside from the bonds, which imply a backstory but aren't
Correct.
necessarily backstory.
Correct.
So we're gonna have to talk with Coffee and backdoor. Provide ideas. How about this? You're one of these unwanted street rat fellows, such and so forth. High class district. Blah 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 blah. Maybe you had siblings. Did you have siblings? Things like that.
And if you want something interesting too, because as a DM, you're the personality traits, the ideal, bond, and flaw, these are all little strings that you can pluck. And if you send this character onto a treasure island with the command of touch nothing but the lamp,
Yeah,
what is gonna happen here?
that's interesting. You can definitely pluck at that. You can definitely give them an opportunity to be better and see how they take it.
And if Coffee's playing the character, this is going to be quite an whatever you run is going to be more interesting for that character because of all of the temptation, right? He hides scraps of food and trinkets in his pockets, maybe even subconsciously. And so here he is in the treasure cave, and he has to touch nothing but the lamp. And here you are in your narrative, and maybe to pluck at that string a little bit and to hook the character in. And maybe the others know that this character does it, but they let him go because it's always just, it's a sea biscuit or whatever. Who cares? But here, the party is sweating bullets because Mark has sticky fingers. And
problematic.
And whether this was on high from some, divine beast or the captain just saying, look, we're in and out, touch nothing else. And plus, you can have a lot of fun, right? He plays all these instruments and such. We also have a whistler, and so you can provide entertainment. But, okay, let's continue. So we've gone over Mark. Mark is pretty much a good boy, though, of course, Coffee's going to have to step into your office.
Mark is a neutral evil character. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, in terms of being sneaky on the page.
Yeah.
But this is something to discuss with Coffee as well. What does this imply? What does this mean? Because you can hope that he's just not going to shank everyone, aboard the ship.
Yeah.
That's not going to do him any favors anyway. But what is the manifestation of this evil, this selfishness, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
So
and that's totally fair, Coffee. I know. And I'm workable with that. Coming up with a backstory later is fine. Just means like maybe some story relevant stuff to you will be further out than people who provided it immediately. And that's just how it goes.
There you go, Coffee. The coach talked to you. Gave you a pep talk.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that I won't play off of what's been given already, but I need more. You want more. Essentially.
All right, so
That's
Coffee
too bad.
is
You're gonna get it.
Oh, say that again.
Too bad, Coffee. You're gonna get the spotlight.
That's right. Hey, I had Coffee on the spotlight on Tuesday, quite literally.
Yeah, shotgun. Coffee Cat right into that spotlight.
All right, so Coffee Cat saunters out, probably feeling pretty happy. Solid concept, and you're like, yeah, I think we can make this work, and we'll talk and customize some things. Well, now English Rose comes up.
Rose's character. This will be a time.
And Rose, steps up to your desk and puts the character sheet down, slides it forward to you, and says, "Are we doing this or what?" And
well, let's see.
Let's see.
Lift it up to my face. We got a soldier here. Interesting. What military were you part of, soldier? Name? Sorry. Rank and what was it? Rank in like platoon or something? rank division, something like that.
Well, there's various ranks and numbers and, you know, and designations and roles. But you know
Yeah,
what this is also forcing you to think about?
yeah, yes. And nautical military, perhaps.
Yeah?
Dragonborn, interesting. What color? Okay. Color is important to me for no reason at all. Let's see. Polite and respectful, has PTSD. Well, prepare for some images of violence. Yes, apparently he did. um, no ideal is worth killing for or dying for. So doesn't like war actually. And her bond is that she'll never leave comrades behind on the battlefield. This is a
Ooh.
stick arounder. A very drastic contrast to
Got it.
the other two, and it's a point of contention that you can exploit. Let's see. Struggle to leave the military behind and often variable ranks. So doesn't like war, but it's hard to get out of the mindset of the military, essentially. That could be used.
Kind of an
You could talk,
institutionalization.
yeah. You could talk smack to the. You could talk military to the wrong person, and it could end up bad. It looks like either a silver or a white. Because the breath weapon is cold. Land vehicles. I might switch that proficiency so they have proficiency in water vehicles.
Okay, that's
Just
good to
because
think
of the
about.
setting.
That's good to think
Just,
about.
just because of the setting. Uh,
What are you going to do with the dice set?
that's that's gambling. That could be definitely something. That seems like something sailors on ships would have. Hilt of a broken sword. There's probably a story behind that sword. It's not on the sheet. I'd have to talk to those about it. Warlock, which is a thing.
Ah,
Damn time goes by fast.
This is a very Feywild party.
this is. And all of these characters were created independently at that.
I know. A very Feywild party. Fey presence does a charm or frighten effect. That's pretty good. I imagine it's frightened for this Dragonborn, just given the nature and the flavor of it. And Misty Escape is like a Misty Step, Cherry Rank, what you would pull, and she's a Silver Dragonborn. Okay, there it is.
Yep, it was a little further down.
Yep. Heavy girl, heavy girl, or boy. Is it a girl or boy? And fun.
Male Dragonborn.
Okay, the Dragonborn.
Big boy.
Big boy. Yeah, he was honorably discharged from the military, so that means there's no. So maybe that means there's like they're trying to get him back. There might be a thread there. Maybe this new kind of life is going against the honor of the military or something. Probably definitely gonna bring back some aspects of their military life, like former comrades and things like that. Expanded spell list. Ultra communications. These are the ones the player chooses. Is good. Tells you a lot. Beguiling influence.
Mhm.
Blade. Armor of shadow. So definitely bulking themselves up. Gives a
Very,
little more-
very personal invocations.
Yeah, very personal. And Pact of the Blade. Pact of the Blade, which makes sense. They're very soldier based. I wonder why they didn't go fighter. I guess we'll find out in the backstory.
And here, so Coffee left it open for you to talk about. And here, just like Sneaky Pete did with Delabean, Rayorn here is putting some baggage down on your desk.
Yeah, baggage. Uh, I'm just gonna scan through it real quick.
Just scan through it.
He's a little bitter about war. I can see where Rose is kind of going with this angle.
Mm-hmm.
And what he'd be against. And how to needle at him. He was the last survivor of his squad. And they were wiped out by a single enemy. Oh, that's interesting. That enemy's probably still alive. It kicking it out somewhere.
Ah.
There's an engine there. That's fun.
Content.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Mentally, he was broken from there. More foreign to him, so he got drunk, went to jail, and generally fell apart after the war. And he has PTSD, serious PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. He doesn't remember meeting the Fey Lord. And doesn't remember the terms of the deal. That's interesting. Doesn't remember what he sold his soul for.
Some soldiers get drunk on base and go and get a tattoo and wake up the next morning. Except this probably carries a couple more consequences.
Yeah, probably. He woke up feeling older. Dang. You could. This line of he woke up feeling older as if years had passed is an interesting clue into the nature of the Fey Lord.
Ah.
Could be like a youth stealer, trading years of the life for something else. It just gives some sort of insight into what kind of patron this guy might. And you also have to think of it from the perspective of who would take an interest in this drunken, honorably discharged soldier. Feylords I read about and tried to run one once.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very fickle kind of Feylord. This Feylord might be a little bit different.
And I think you're getting a lot of clues about someone who could exist like this. You have a half-elf, and half-elves have Fey ancestry. You have a forest gnome, and while they mechanically don't have Fey ancestry, gnomes are... Yeah, they're considered like, halflings are to humans what, or like gnomes to elves are halflings to humans. They are of Fey origin, and especially we have a forest gnome, right?
Right.
We have a paladin that actually has anti-Fey abilities.
Right. But they are an Oath of paladin, which means they are kind of the Fey as well.
It depends on how you want to flavor it, because their turn undead of like their channel divinity is anti-fiend and anti-Fey.
Yeah.
It turns Fey away. That doesn't mean that it explodes them like a skeleton to a destroy undead. But they can scare off, or they have the ability to help others not succumb to the illusions or the wiles or the fickleness of the Fey.
So he's looking for home, and I just finished reading the backstory, and I saw that there's a few more clues as to the nature of this being, because the being made the memories sort of fade away, become foggier, which is interesting.
That gives you a lot of flexibility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
all right, let's look at stuff.
You know where I see? Real quick, do you know where I see one other connection?
What's that?
Go back over. So we have our Fey paladin, right?
Right.
And you said that dragons are probably really rare. Now I don't know how that's going to manifest for Dragonborn, but look at this. In Delabine, his life was changed when a wounded dragon crashed into his forest.
Yeah, that's a connection between the two, really.
We have
Possibly.
soldier-style characters, both with a link of the Fae, and both of a link to a dragon in some way.
Right.
I think you could really play with them greatly.
Right.
And while he will leave people behind,
Yeah.
yet we have Raorn, who is willing to stand and fight. And we have someone who's optimistic and looking to the future. And we have Raorn, who is living in the past and is tortured by it.
Right. It's interesting. There's definitely certain character webs you can weave, like what Macabre Derek does in his streams. He makes character map. And that would certainly be an exercise that I would do because it would help me flesh out the connection between characters. Because it's all well and good to have these plot lines for each of these characters, but if you don't have something that connects them, it's a little
exactly. All right, and then you got to check the spell list here to delve a little bit deeper into the character.
Chill Touch. That's one of my favorites. It's necrotic damage, actually.
Yep. And anti-healing.
Yes, I know. I've heard it, Chill Touch, be called Lich Slap before.
Lich Slap. and you know, this is coming from someone whose wounds don't heal also. Right? Their psychological wounds don't heal.
That's true. Minor illusion. That plays into the kind of ghost stuff. Prestidigitation. That's an all-purpose, all-arounder, pretty good spell. Charm Person. Huh. I guess that's for the charismatic aspect of the character. Fairy Fire, protection from good and evil, so a defender. Calm Emotions, different house. Calm Emotions part of the expanded, yeah, it is. The expanded spell list. And there's Counterspell and Fear. All of these are very charisma, timidity. All the ones that were chosen, at least, are either protection, debuffs, and charisma based. So this is it's a person with a lot of force of personality. A lot of force of personality. This was a commander. This was someone who's not used to...
This was an officer, a soldier officer.
Right. So they have a lot of tools in their kit for cowing people, for basically being listened.
And charisma magic comes from within oneself. If you consider the story of Raorn, I mean, this is a coping mechanism here, calm emotions.
Yeah.
Phantasmal force is a way of taking the fear and the horror inside of her, or him, I'm sorry.
Him.
And projecting that. You know, and so these are ways of externalizing the internal struggle that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that's also neat that I didn't see on the spell sheet is what?
Wait, say again?
Something that's not on this spell sheet is what? In the cantrip section.
Illusion, Chill Touch?
Well, Chill Touch is there.
Oh, yeah. It's not an Eldritch Blast Warlock. I keep forgetting that that this is a Warlock because it doesn't feel like a Warlock.
Yes! So English Rose is presenting to you a character that, I mean, you could run it as a warlock and, you know, use all the labels, but this could be a warlock, you know, mechanically, but could be something else. All of the invocations are to enhance his own defenses and offenses. They're to cope and mitigate his own terrors and hopes. And so you have someone who is mechanically a warlock, but is not taking Eldritch Blast, and is taking a very interesting selection of spells.
Yeah. It's definitely definitely a warlock that feels different. My only concern is that,
Hmm.
and this is just a mechanical concern,
Okay.
really, but some players are unhappy when they feel like they can't do anything in combat. That's just kind of part of the nature of the beast, right?
Okay.
I just worry because it's a Pact of Blade Warlock, but it looks like they're spec'd for cast.
Are they?
I mean, they've got an 18 in Charisma, 16 in
Yes.
Strength, admittedly, but their Constitution's 10. Their Dexterity is 1. They don't wear heavy armor. They're they're a bit fragile,
Okay.
honestly.
This does seem like a very fragile character, huh?
Yeah. Which is it's at war in my head with the idea of this strong soldier. Because when I imagine like chain, a big old honker sword. What kind of
Mm-hmm.
sword does he got? He doesn't have a sword. That's a magic sword.
Well, there's a pact weapon can be anything.
Right. But what's the pact weapon? What did he choose as the pact?
It's whatever you want to manifest. It could be a great sword. It could be a dagger.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Rose is right. He's an officer, a leader, not necessarily a fighter. Guess he would be the face.
Would a leader would a leader have a high charisma whether there's magic involved or not?
I feel so. It's not essentially necessary. I play a wizard who has sort of mediocre charisma, but is more or less, I wouldn't say the party face. That's incorrect, but she's kind of the one who, like, yeah, let's go do this, and everyone's like, yeah, we can do that. She's done a lot of weird stuff. A
Well,
leader need not necessarily be the charismatic one. It can be like a mastermindy type.
and
yeah,
these are things that you could sit down with Rose and discuss and say, I think, you're building a melee character, and I just want to go over that you're comfortable with the stats, and
yeah. I
and
mean,
go ahead.
I would gently push for maybe something that Rose would be content with in combat, not just like as a character itself, but in combat. I know that I'm not sure if Rose is one of those players, but a lot of players like feeling relatively useful in combat. And there's just a little bit of power, I think, that's missing from.
And only Rose can tell you if that comfort level or whatever the concept of usability is. And this is another good point as a DM. You have a concern. It may not be a heckin' concern.
It's not a hectic concern.
But it is a concern. You has one. And
Yeah,
Rose can tell you. And you know what? Rose can hold cards also and not reveal stuff straight up and say, I'm content with this build. And I look forward to playing in your game with absolute confidence and full eye contact.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just want to make sure that Rose is completely confident in her choices. I don't want anyone to go in like with this idea and then realize part of the way in that it's not what they wanted, or it's not super viable for like a awesome badass pachu sort of thing. And if they were expecting that, I don't want them to be disappointed, sort of thing.
And that's good, because sometimes as a DM, you got to be a speed bump. Someone could get like 100% behind a character, pound out a sheet, and as you're sitting there looking at it, and you say, "Oh, well, so what about this? I want to make sure we're good." And you did the person a favor, or even if they say, "You know what, I got you, fam. I know what you're talking about. I appreciate it, but let's roll with it."
And Rose is like, yeah, he's meant to be a controller on the battlefield. He's not supposed to be like crazy up there. And I'm like, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with it. I just wanted to make sure you were cozy with that notion. And that's all.
And then lastly, we are going to take a look. So Rose is, I got this. You know what? So consider me like a bard. I'm playing a warlock, but consider me like a valor bard. And then of course we have a valor bard that's acting like a fighter, and we have this odd, interesting mix.
Yeah, definitely.
And then in comes Jeremy.
In comes Jeremy like a wrecking
And
ball.
Jeremy, proud, beaming, like you could see the light shining off of his face. And Jeremy places on your desk Woo Woo Wikusi. Woo Woo Wikusi.
He's a little kobold. I love tiny little kobolds. There's more of the dragon theme.
Yes, and
Druid, so moon druid actually. So,
okay.
Shapeshifty. Interesting. We had a bit of shapeshifty with Pete's character actually.
You're very anti-shapeshifter, huh?
Yeah, he was very anti. Druid, which means, well, not necessarily means, but generally means kind of ties to Fae. Because that's. And then he's a landcraft. Interesting. I wonder what sort of thing. So, personality traits. Very proud of his work. And tries to show it off. What? He's surprised when he doesn't get the recognition. And he's very money grubbing, which is, again, an opposite to Pete. God damn you two. Kobold is not a standard race.
Oh. Uwu. That is true.
That's from Volos.
Yeah.
Pete.
Oh.
Jeremy. The others behaved. What's it with you, too? Has it just blended together in your brains?
What else is not from the player's handbook?
Is Clandcrafter not from the player's
Nope.
handbook?
That's from Skag.
Two. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else? Let's just skim through more of the sheet. I'm going down.
Okay.
Everyone should be free to pursue their livelihood. He's gonna prove that he's the greatest artisan in the world. And always going to presume that someone's gonna try and cheat. So, we have 3 kind of trust issue characters. Well, 2 trust issue characters. 3 that would probably leave people. And the one who's like, I got you guys. He's gonna get left to die. That's gonna be sad. Poor Rayorn. I see a vision of the future, and it's gore. An interesting dilemma for these characters would be to separate Rayorn from the rest of the party and see what they would do to get him back, if they would try or things like that. Sort of a test of their bond from there. Interesting story arc. Could go horribly wrong. What is an ersatz eye?
What is an ersatz eye?
I don't know.
Does that sound like something that's in the player's handbook?
That's not.
Oh.
I've never heard of one. Strike count 3. Knows Common, Draconic, and Dwarven, which is okay. Might need to figure out how we know Dwarven, but that's...
Just Dwarven?
Well, it's Kobold. They would know Draconic. Because we have Dragon theme.
If kobolds exist, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have here? Effect of the Stout Bow. So, this is a lot about dwarves. Thought about diversion. Classic Death, no Druidic, Wild Shape, Primal Strike. Let's see if we can, what's wrong with the ability scores? What the hell?
Oh, you've noticed the ability score. Does this use the standard array, especially for a 6th level character?
I would not think so.
I imagine on a 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, you wouldn't be able to end up with a -3 strength.
Probably not. HP rule was violated as well.
Yes.
Let's take the average.
He
Not
told you
roll.
he's just gonna roll his hit points.
No, you're not. It's the rules. It's against the rules. You will not be a little wimp. Fine, you will take... You know, if you're gonna be like that, Jeremy, you're gonna take the minimum. And you're not gonna add your constitution to it. You will be the piddliest kobold in the world. You're 25 pounds and you're like 2 feet tall? What is wrong with you?
Well, the answer to that question is also in this character's backstory, which is quite excessive.
Oh my lord, it is.
I don't say excessive as a bad thing, but Jeremy's walking into your office all proud of this character. I want to play with you, and here is my submission.
Oh, dear God, Jeremy. Okay, there's this lucky feat. You
Yep.
would take the lucky feat. You would. There's a petrified potato. Why is there a petrified potato? Why? Why? How did you petrify? What? I love the potato. I desperately love the potato. I hope that's your Wilson. You should never...
That's your Wilson?
Yeah. Talk to it when you're lonely. No, it is a potato. It's not a trinket. Clearly. And it's also not in the player handbook. Dun dun dun! Jeremy, you're doing... You just need a little slap on the wrist. Alright. Let's look at this excessive backstory. Uh-huh. He was raised by a dwarf. And he was born without arms.
Born without arms. How is he 25 pounds and only 2 feet high?
And how are you going to cast spells with somatic components? How are you gonna do that? Are your shape forms gonna not have arms? Let's see. Woo woo. So he was abused until he started pottery.
Now, something else about this sheet is he did include notes that appear with these little speech bubbles. So after you're done with the backstory, it is
Oh,
an
God.
annotated backstory at that.
Why? Why have you done this? Jeez, it is an annotated backstory. Jeremy, are all of your sheets like this?
Now, something that is answering a question, because he seemed to predict that you'd waggle your finger at him. If you look at the annotation for not his backstory, but his spell list, Woo-Woo has no arms, thus somatic components for spellcasting in a traditional sense aren't really possible. I would imagine that, having grown up with this disability, Woo-Woo would have learned to use his feet or tail with more precise motor control, capable of performing somatic components for spells or for holding simple objects like a torch.
I'll give it to him within the realm of believability.
You sound so defeated when you acquiesce. And something else to bring up as well is, when he has stated, I'll have to find it on the sheet here. He has stated that when he shifts into animal form, those animals do not have arms as well.
I see.
But they do have legs.
Interesting. How does that work for spiders?
You should ask him that. How would that work with spiders? Are they all legs? Are some of them arms? All right. So now you have an interesting conundrum, Fox.
Still reading through the backstory.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's problematic.
It's problematic.
Also, Woo has always had druid powers because something called. Don't yada yada this.
Yes, he included a yada yada in there too. Something.
Yada yada druid. Oh.
And he also threw in some mountain for where the dwarves live too.
Yeah, someplace. That's fine. I can work with that, but don't yada yada your druidic origin. Rude. Alright, let's look at your spells. Absorb elements, create and destroy water, good berry. Pulled these from Xanathar's. There's stuff up there. Well, it's treason then.
It's treason. Fuck. Jeremy, you're just sitting you're there, you're looking all proud on her desk, just sets your character sheet down, kind of pushes it forward, looks up at you, kind of steeples her her fingers like, well, it's treason then. Yeah, the spell list isn't a player's handbook, and
Yep.
and he had the audacity to yada yada you too.
Yeah. He's gonna, like, a lightsaber comes out, and I do like a impossible physics defying spin charge at him.
Oh. And Shlomo's even saying apparently he's missing a cantrip, as he should have 3 and not even 2.
Sure.
Now, here's the interesting dilemma, right? So Jeremy has come in and he has presented you this character. This character may be broken of body, but I don't think is mechanically
he's broken apart.
And broken apart. I don't think he's mechanically a threat.
No, he's not. He's just adorable and perfect, and he's going on my shelf.
And well, and so here Jeremy, like his lower lip is quivering, and he wants to play woo-woo in your sailing campaign. So the question is, are you going to allow woo-woo to play, or are you going to send Jeremy back and say, do it again?
I'm staring at him across from the table with a cold stare and my fingers steepled after saying it was treason. It wouldn't exactly be fair to the other players if I allowed all this extra content. So either they would need to be allowed to have options from the content that Jeremy here used, or if everyone else is okay with it, I could talk to the other players about how they feel about woo-woo. I more than anything, I don't want the other players to feel like they got cheated for having this special exception. And I'm personally fine with woo-woo, but I want it to be fair to the other guys too.
Very, very well said. Now, that's in my opinion. Other DMs may agree or disagree in other ways. Fox, that natural reaction, that I like woo-woo, but
Yeah.
The yes and no but. In my opinion, as if you see me as someone who at least knows halfway how to DM his way out of a wet paper bag, that is the most appropriate response and mentality for someone who brings up something along these lines. That they're seeking, maybe not even maliciously. Again, woo-woo is not a threat.
No.
Is not overpowered.
He's already half dead. Put him out of his misery.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, look at that. He's even rolling. In fact, you even imposed 1 hit point. You get the minimum, and you don't even have a Constitution modifier. So he'd have 11 hit points.
Yes, I agree. I agree, Jeremy. Ooh, it was OP.
See, that's how he sneaks that in there. You got to be careful. But that was an appropriate response of, I need to communicate with the other players, and I need to talk to them about this and see if if they like their characters and they say let woo-woo be, maybe the other players are happy. But for sure, that was the appropriate response, Fox.
Rolled for stats and got bad stats. It's appropriate. It's fitting for a kobold, though. Gotta be honest. That's a lie. You handcrafted this. It does have the stink of something that was handcrafted. Specifically to mess with the rules.
Well, here's something... Fox, here's something to consider. We have a moon druid, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a druid who specializes in shape changing.
Right. It seems like Pete and Jeremy's characters are extremely on opposite ends of their spectrums.
Well, there could be conflict or character exploration there. But consider this. Mm-hmm. Yes, Woo-Woo has a -3 strength. Woo-Woo the kobold.
Mm-hmm.
What does Woo-Woo the Tyrannosaurus Rex have?
Problems.
All right, problem. Okay, yes, there are problems. But what are we looking at here? Are we looking at a weak little kobold?
Potentially.
When you shapeshift, what happens?
You take on the strength, dex, and constitution scores.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
So he's a little kobold with a big heart.
What would Woo-Woo the dire barracuda? Is he just a poor little kobold floating around in the water with no arms?
Does the dire shark not have fins? Is that a thing?
That'd be up to you. But remember that Woo-Woo here, slipping in under the guises of, oh, I'm a poor little kobold and I never hurt nobody. I'm friends with dwarves and I make pottery with my tail.
Yeah.
Can turn into a dire shark. And
it's problems for people. It is very unsuspecting.
Yeah.
Of course. Jeremy, we would have to talk about the yada-yadaing of the druidic backstory because that's not gonna fly. I mean, Rose did it in a way that was okay. Like,
Okay.
he made a warlock soldier that didn't feel like a warlock, that felt more like a fighter, that felt like a commander. He was his background
Og
first
what is
before
this
he
not
was
talking
his,
about?
class, which I think is very interesting. But I think maybe this one's, but she incorporated the class into the background.
Mm-hmm.
This is all background, no class. I don't understand. Don't understand.
All background, no
Why?
class.
Yes.
Oh. Well,
And if you wanted me to come up with the way it got into the story, that would be at my discretion, and he might regret leaving it to me.
well, it sounds like you like woo-woo as a concept, and you said you want to put
I
him on
do.
your shelf.
Yes.
Could that mean that you could tell Jeremy, well, I like the character, maybe he can be an NPC on the ship, but I'm going to need you to re-roll a character?
That's an option if the other players are not into it.
Oh, well then, Jeremy, you have some homework. Because I think you need to gen up a character that follows the rules and submit something for consideration. Now, we've gone 2 hours. We've gone a little bit over for the bumper time. So
Right.
I don't want to keep you here too long, Fox, but I think you did an amazing job of fleshing out an idea that you had and then taking a cursory glance at the sheets that were submitted to you and not just looking them over for the characters, but at any point in time did this get you to reflect on the list that we made? You know, exploring the unknown, wondrous things and horrible things beneath the waves.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Then what we're going to do, I mean, it depends on how much time you have. If you got to go to bed tonight, I understand.
What are we gonna do?
We're gonna take this information and we're gonna look at it. We're gonna compile it. Aha! I used your term.
Aha! You did it. Very, very impressive.
And there's a couple sheets that I whipped up already.
Yes, I see the compiled notes. It's helpful. I didn't actually.
Oh, hello, Raiders! Welcome from Behold Roleplay, or if we combine that together, it's like Beholder Roleplay. Welcome and thank you very, very much for that raid or the host. Yeah, the raid and the host. My goodness.
Thank you.
Yeah, here I'm gonna.
You're amazing. This guy's a good guy.
I try to be. Behold a raid. Beholder Roleplay. Yes, everyone, welcome. If you got the emotes, please spam them to welcome our raiders here to Maddie Morgs as we're going over some tings and how to draw information and to consider this and that. So Fox, yeah, do you need to get going for the night?
Yeah, we can pick this up tomorrow though, right?
Yep, we'll pick it up tomorrow. And in fact, I'm gonna show a little bit of ankle here to folks at home. I'm going to show a little bit about what we have and what's going on.
Oh, you sly dog.
Yeah. This is a PG-13 stream, too, and I'm sneaking this in here. So we have an examination of the party. Now, I do have woo-woo here. Now, we can put the fifth, or I guess it'd be the fourth, but the fifth character here. But if you're on the fence about woo-woo, we could include him in here. But I'm going to show you some ways that we can break down the party and take a look at it, and we'll move forward from there.
Oh yeah, that looks like. Do you do this for many characters, many campaigns?
Well, not many campaigns, many characters. Yeah, you could say so, because this is a Maddie Morgs channel technique, I guess you could say. Where we've done this before at the end of the... normally at the end of the week is when we do this. Where we go over the characters we randomly generated, and we compile their information and take a look at them in order to discuss the story that can be told. But you have 4 people who've already stepped up and made the characters, and so now we're beginning the week where we normally end it.
Oh yes, exciting.
Yvonne's
Well,
asking if that's Animu on my desktop. And it is, in fact. There's a little bit of a peek as well. It is, in fact, Animu.
I see the Animu.
Animu, you know them
You're
there
showing too much
Chinese
ankle.
cartoons.
Showing too much ankle. It's scandalous.
All right. Well, hey, Fox, thank you so much. You did an
Yeah.
amazing job. You spoke with confidence, and even if you're fooling me, then congratulations, you fooled me, and don't correct me otherwise.
Okay.
And I very much appreciate your time spent here tonight, and for the other nights that we're gonna have coming up here. And I hope you're having fun. And if you did enjoy what we did here, I really think you're gonna just continue to enjoy the process. And I hope this is gonna de-stress you about stepping up to be more of a full-time.
It won't. But
We
it
can
does help me have tools in the toolbox to help me prepare better.
There we go. That'll work too. All right, so everyone, I'm going to take about a 10-minute break. I'm going to get a snack and a drink, and when we come back, we'll see what fun we can get into. Maybe we can take a little bit of another delve into the character sheets. I'm not gonna put words in your mouth if we do that. We're gonna go over and just sort of nitpick and look at other aspects, though, Fox.
All right, no worries. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.